This course is a companion to the book The Project Brain: Evolving Project Managers, available on Amazon. If you find today's session valuable, the book goes deeper on every framework you are about to learn, including the 3-tier document system, the janitor protocol, synthetic stakeholder simulations, and the full blueprint for an artificial intelligence-powered project management office you can run from your own desktop. You can find it by searching for The Project Brain by Self-Made PM on Amazon, or by visiting selfmadepm.com. Now let us begin the course. 1. Welcome to this 3-hour professional development session on advanced prompt engineering using the peanut butter and jelly framework, which we will refer to from here on as the PB&J framework. Over the next 3 hours, you will move from writing one-line requests that produce generic output to authoring structured system prompts that consistently deliver expert-level work. This course is eligible for 3 self-reported professional development units with the Project Management Institute under the online or digital media category, and it maps to the ways of working edge of the Project Management Institute talent triangle. Let us begin. 2. By the end of this session, you will be able to do 3 things. First, you will be able to construct a 4-pillar system prompt using identity, objective, context, and constraints, and explain why each pillar matters. Second, you will be able to apply the PB&J framework, which stands for persona, briefing, and job, to any recurring project management deliverable. Third, you will be able to build a small library of data-driven personas tuned to your own organization's voice and iterate them to measurable quality gains. Each objective maps to a dedicated section of this course. Here is how we will spend our 3 hours together. Part 1 explains why most prompts fail and what architecture actually looks like. Part 2 walks you through the 4 pillars of a professional system prompt. Part 3 introduces the PB&J framework and shows how to compose one end to end. Part 4 covers data-driven personas and how to inject your organization's voice. Part 5 addresses platform differences between major large language model providers. Part 6 is a worked example where we build a status report prompt together. At the end, I will walk you through exactly how to claim your professional development units. Almost every project manager who abandons artificial intelligence tools blames the model. The model is not the problem. The problem is that most people type requests the way they would ask a coworker a favor, and they expect a consultant's output in return. Let us fix that. 5. An amateur prompt looks like this. Help me with my project plan. Draft an email to my sponsor. Summarize this document. These prompts feel reasonable because they mirror how humans talk to each other. The trouble is that human conversation relies on enormous amounts of unstated context. Your coworker knows your project, your tone, your audience, and your deadline. The large language model knows none of that. When you underspecify, the model averages across every possible interpretation of your request and produces something bland that fits them all. The output feels generic because it is generic. The model is doing its best with the fraction of context you gave it. 6. Experienced practitioners stop searching for magic words and start building architecture. Architecture means structure that the model can latch onto and reason within. A well-architected prompt is not longer for the sake of being long. It is longer because it replaces the shared context a colleague would already have. When you make that context explicit, you replace guesswork with direction. and the quality of your output rises sharply and repeatably. The rest of this course is a tour of that architecture. 7. One more mindset shift before we dive in. Treat your prompts as code, not as throwaway questions. When a prompt produces imperfect output, do not just retype it with different words. Save it, diagnose what was missing, and revise it with intention. After 3 or 4 iterations, a well-crafted prompt becomes a reusable asset. The professionals who get 10 times more value from these tools are not typing faster. They are maintaining a small library of tuned prompts that they can redeploy every week. 8. Every effective system prompt rests on 4 pillars: identity, objective, context, constraints. Miss any one, and output quality drops off a cliff. Let us walk each pillar in turn. Identity defines who the model is pretending to be. It is not just a job title. It is a fully realized professional persona with specific expertise, a communication style, a set of default frameworks, and a point of view. When you tell Claude to behave as a senior program manager with 15 years of experience in regulated financial services, you activate a fundamentally different response pattern than a generic assistant. The model draws on patterns associated with that identity, including vocabulary, risk tolerance, and the kinds of questions that person would ask back. A weak identity produces generic output because it activates no particular pattern. A strong identity grounds every later instruction in a coherent voice. 10. Objective states exactly what you need accomplished. Vague objectives produce vague output. Instead of asking for help with a project plan, state that you need a 3-phase implementation plan for migrating a legacy customer relationship management system with dependency mapping across teams, resource allocation for a 12-person cross-functional group, and milestone definitions aligned to the organization's quarterly business reviews. Notice how specific that is. Notice that a junior analyst handed the same objective would know where to start. That is the test for a well-written objective. If a reasonable human could begin work without asking you a clarifying question, your objective is sharp enough. 11. Context provides the situational details that make output relevant to your reality, your industry, your organizational culture, your project stage, your audience's priorities, the constraints your steering committee has already imposed. Context is where most prompts silently fail because the author assumes the model can infer what they never said. The model cannot. A 5-sentence context block that names your industry, your current project phase, your top 3 risks, and your audience's decision criteria will dramatically outperform a paragraph of prose that dances around those same facts without stating them. Write your context in dense, declarative sentences. Leave nothing to inference that matters to the outcome. 12. Constraints set the boundaries: word count, format, tone, vocabulary to avoid, assumptions to challenge, output structure, required sections, forbidden sections. Constraints are not limitations on creativity. They are guardrails that channel the model's capability toward your specific needs. A constraint that says no more than 600 words, written in an executive tone, with a 1-sentence recommendation first and no hedging language, will produce a usable first draft. The same objective without those constraints produces a wall of text you have to rewrite. Constraints are where amateur prompts become professional prompts. 13. It is tempting to skip pillars to save time. Resist the temptation. A prompt with identity and objective but no context produces output that misreads your situation. A prompt with context but no identity produces a voice that does not match your audience. A prompt with everything but constraints produces a ramble. The 4 pillars are load-bearing. When you feel tempted to shortcut one, that is usually the pillar your output is about to fail on. 14. The 4-pillar architecture is the foundation. The PB&J framework is the construction method. It stands for persona, briefing, and job. Think of it as a simplified mental model you can assemble in 5 minutes without a checklist. Let us take each layer apart. 15. The persona layer is where identity lives, but it goes further. You are not just assigning a role, you are defining how this persona thinks, which frameworks they default to, and what biases they carry. A risk-averse financial analyst persona produces fundamentally different project assessments than an innovation-focused product strategist persona, and both of those differ from a regulator-focused compliance officer persona. When you build a persona, spend 2 or 3 sentences on how the persona thinks, not just what the persona does. For example, state that this persona prioritizes data over anecdote, asks a clarifying question before producing a recommendation, and flags the assumptions embedded in any projection before committing to a number. 16. The briefing layer delivers all the information the persona needs to do the job well. Think of it as the packet you would hand a new consultant on day 1. Background, current state, desired outcomes, key players, any previous attempts at solving the problem, known constraints. The briefing is dense. It is not prose. It is a structured handoff. The better your briefing, the less rework you do later, because the model is not guessing at facts you withheld. A strong briefing is usually the longest section of a PB&J prompt, and that is correct. It is where the unshared context becomes shared. 17. The job layer specifies the exact deliverable: format, length, audience, tone, success criteria, required sections, forbidden phrasing. This is where you prevent the model from going off track. A well-written job specification eliminates the common failure mode where the model produces something adjacent to what you asked for, but not the thing itself. When the model returns a long essay when you wanted a 2-paragraph executive summary, the job layer was the weak link. Write job specifications like you are writing acceptance criteria for a user story. If it cannot be checked, it cannot be trusted. 18. A complete PB&J prompt has 3 blocks in order. First, the persona, 2 to 4 sentences. Then, the briefing, usually a bulleted or structured block of facts. Then, the job, 2 to 4 sentences of deliverable specification. Total length typically falls between 300 and 700 words. That range is your sweet spot. Shorter prompts lack specificity. Longer prompts cause the model to lose focus on the instructions that matter most. If you find yourself writing beyond 800 words, the briefing is probably padded. Trim it. 19. Generic personas produce generic work. Data-driven personas produce work that sounds like it came from your organization. The difference lies in feeding your persona real artifacts, and this is where most practitioners stop well short of the real power of the technique. 20. Upload examples of how your organization writes status reports. Include samples of approved executive communications. Share templates that passed stakeholder review. When the model absorbs these artifacts alongside a persona definition, it begins producing output that matches your organizational voice rather than a generic corporate tone. The mechanism is simple. Large language models learn by pattern, and 3 or 4 concrete examples activate a much tighter pattern than any abstract description of style. Instead of writing, "Write in a professional executive tone," attach two status reports your chief executive officer praised, and say, "Match the voice of these examples." 21. For project management, build one persona per recurring task. Your risk assessment persona should reference your organization's risk matrix and scoring methodology. Your stakeholder communication persona should know your reporting cadence, your preferred dashboard format, and the specific metrics your sponsor tracks. Your lessons learned persona should have access to prior retrospectives, so its synthesis sounds like a continuation, not a fresh start. Over time, you accumulate a roster of task-specific personas, and your weekly output becomes a coordinated set of drafts from that roster, rather than a single overloaded assistant trying to do everything. 22. 3 mistakes show up repeatedly. First, personas that are just job titles. Senior project manager is not a persona, it is a role. A persona includes how that senior project manager thinks under pressure and which frameworks they refuse to abandon. Second, personas that are overloaded. One persona cannot be your risk analyst, your communications writer, and your vendor negotiator without losing sharpness in all three. Split the persona. Third, personas that never get updated. As your project moves through phases, the ideal persona shifts. A persona built for planning will not serve you as well in closing. Treat personas as living documents. 23. The two leading large language model platforms handle system prompts differently, and understanding these differences matters for advanced practitioners. 24. Claude treats the system prompt as highly authoritative guidance and tends to follow nuanced persona instructions with strong fidelity, particularly around tone and communication style. In practice, this means your Claude system prompts can be more detailed about behavioral expectations. You can specify that your persona should ask clarifying questions before proceeding on ambiguous requests, push back on unrealistic timelines, or flag assumptions that need validation. Claude reliably maintains these behavioral patterns throughout long conversations. When you need a steady voice across a week of work, Claude is usually the sharper instrument. 25. OpenAI system prompt sits in a separate message role the model treats as authoritative instructions as well, but the model tends to weight explicit formatting instructions more heavily than softer behavioral cues. You will get better results by being very literal about output shape, for example, by specifying exact section headers and line counts. The persona will hold, but the formatting pressure is stronger than the behavioral pressure. Plan accordingly. 26. The practical takeaway is that the persona and briefing layers of a PB&J prompt transfer cleanly across platforms, but the job layer often needs platform-specific tuning. Build your base prompt once, then maintain a Claude version and an OpenAI version with small differences in the job block. Test both on the same realistic scenarios every quarter and keep notes on which platform wins for which task. Over 6 months, you will have a calibrated sense of which model to reach for and when. 27. Let us put everything together with a worked example. The weekly status report is the single deliverable most project managers spend the most time on and gain the least joy from. It is a perfect first candidate for a PB&J prompt. 28. Start with the persona. Write 2 or 3 sentences. For example, you are a senior program manager with 15 years of experience in regulated financial services. You write status reports in plain executive language, lead every update with the most important change since last week, and flag risks with proposed mitigations rather than open questions. You never use hedging language such as "we think" or "it is possible." You make a clear statement and specify your confidence level. 29. Next, the briefing. Include the project name, the current phase, the current red, amber, green status, the top 3 open risks with owners, the last 3 milestones with actual dates, and the next 3 milestones with forecast dates. Include any decision awaited from the sponsor. Include any change requests in flight. Keep it dense, no prose. This briefing will be the block you refresh weekly, which makes the entire prompt reusable. 30. Finally, the job. Produce a 1-page status report in 3 sections. Headline, 1 sentence. Key changes since last week, no more than 5 bullets. Risks and actions, no more than 5 items, each with owner and due date. Total length under 400 words. Tone, executive. No hedging. Any open decision must appear in the headline. 31. Run the prompt. Read the draft critically. Where it is wrong, adjust the persona, the briefing, or the job. By the 3rd iteration, you will have a prompt that produces a status report requiring only minor edits before it goes out. Multiply that across your 12 weeks per quarter, and you have reclaimed a meaningful fraction of your week for actual project work. 32. A few common pitfalls to avoid. Do not let the briefing go stale. A static briefing that describes last month's reality will produce a status report that misleads your sponsor. Do not collapse persona, briefing, and job into a single paragraph. The separation is what makes the prompt maintainable. Do not chase exotic prompt hacks over solid architecture. 90% of the benefit is in the 4 pillars done well. The last 10% is not worth the complexity it adds. 33. Track 3, metrics over time. First draft acceptance rate, meaning how often you use the output with only minor edits. Number of revision cycles needed to reach an acceptable draft. Time from prompt to final deliverable. When you start, you might accept only 30% of first drafts. After refining your prompts through the PB&J framework, that rate should climb above 70%. If it plateaus, the briefing layer likely needs richer context or the constraints need tightening. Those metrics also give you something concrete to show leadership when you propose expanding artificial intelligence practice across the team. 34. Let us recap. You can now construct a 4-pillar system prompt using identity, objective, context, and constraints, and you understand why skipping any one pillar degrades output. You can apply the PB&J framework, which stands for persona, briefing, and job, to any recurring project management deliverable. And you can build data-driven personas tuned to your organization's voice by feeding the model real artifacts and iterating toward measurable quality gains. Your next step is to pick one high-value recurring deliverable this week, build the prompt, and run it through 3 iteration cycles. 35. To claim your 3 professional development units, log into your Project Management Institute dashboard at the Continuing Certification Requirements System, which is abbreviated CCRS. Select Report Professional Development Units. Choose the category labeled Online or Digital Media. Enter the course title exactly as shown on your certificate, which is Advanced Prompt Engineering with the PB&J framework. Enter the date you completed the course. Enter the provider name as Self-Made PM. Enter the professional development unit value of 3, allocated to the ways of working area of the talent triangle. Retain your certificate of completion in case of an audit. Self-Made PM is not a Project Management Institute authorized training partner, and professional development units on this platform are self-reported. Thank you for spending these 3 hours with me. I will see you in the next course. 36. Thank you for completing this course. If the ideas in this session sparked something for you, the next step is the book. The Project Brain, Evolving Project Managers, is available now on Amazon and goes far beyond what we could cover in this session. It contains the complete system for building, maintaining, and scaling an artificial intelligence-powered project management office, the full janitor protocol with templates, deeper stakeholder simulation patterns, and real-world case studies from practitioners who have saved 10 to 15 hours per week using these methods. You can find more free courses, tools, and articles at selfmadepm.com. Again, thank you for your time, and remember to log your professional development units. I will see you in the next course. 37.